We all love a good underdog story, right?
Yeah.
The grit, the determination, that climb to the top.
Yeah, for sure.
And in boxing, I mean, few stories are as captivating as Anthony Joshua's rise.
Yeah, from like a relative unknown to like heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, it's the kind of story that inspires movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But with those Hollywood stories, they often kind of gloss over the less glamorous parts, right?
Oh, totally.
Like the behind the scenes, the struggles, the relationships that shape a champion's journey.
It's like, that old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, sometimes it takes a village to make a champion, too.
And in Joshua's case, one of the key figures in that village was his first real mentor, a guy named Don Charles.
Okay.
Ever heard like the phrase the drill sergeant of boxing?
Oh, absolutely. Don Charles, yeah, legendary, especially in North London. Built his rep, forging raw talent into disciplined fighters, guys like Derek Chisora.
It's that reputation that
Yeah.
draws this young and hungry Anthony Joshua to him.
Okay.
So picture this. Joshua literally chases Don down on the street, practically begging for a chance to train with him.
Whoa, talk about ambition, right?
Right.
This wasn't some casual, hey, wanna spar? This was Joshua seeing something in Don, knowing that he needed this guy to take his boxing to the next level.
Yeah. It's like he saw that Don wasn't just a coach, he was a kingmaker.
Yeah.
And Joshua, he wanted to be king.
And Don, always up for a challenge, agrees to take him on. But this isn't some, cushy mentorship program. This is grueling, early morning runs, drills that would make a Navy SEAL sweat. Don was relentless, pushing Joshua past exhaustion, past the point where most fighters would break.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying, iron sharpens iron, right?
Right.
Don saw that potential in Joshua, but he also saw, the rawness, the areas that needed to be, hammered into shape. And he wasn't afraid to be the hammer.
Let's be clear. That kind of intensity, that constant demand for more, it's not for everyone, but it forged something in Joshua. It instilled this insane work ethic, a discipline that became like the bedrock of his success.
Yeah, and the results speak for themselves.
Right.
Under Don's guidance, Joshua starts racking up wins, climbing the ranks. Remember, footwork, jab, head movement.
Oh, yeah.
That was Don's mantra.
Right.
Drilled into Joshua day in and day out. And it worked.
It's fascinating, isn't it, to think about that period of intense growth, almost like a symbiotic relationship between mentor and protege.
Right.
Because in those early days, Joshua seemed to thrive under Don's, tough love.
Yeah, but as Joshua's star began to rise, his ambitions grew too.
Oh, okay.
And those ambitions started to, chafe against that rigid structure that Don had built around him. And this is where the story takes an interesting turn.
Okay.
Joshua starts expressing this desire for, more freedom in his training, a less rigid approach.
Interesting.
He wants to spread his wings, experiment, maybe even prove that he can fly on his own.
And that's where I think the tension in these mentor-protege relationships often lies, right? That moment when the student starts to question the master, to crave that autonomy, to forge their own path, even if it means leaving the nest.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you can lead a horse to water.
Right.
Don had given him the tools, the foundation, but could he force him to keep using them his way forever?
And from Don's perspective, I mean, you can imagine the mix of emotions, right? Pride in his student's success, but also this growing sense of uneasiness, maybe even this like flicker of that age-old fear of being surpassed, of becoming, obsolete.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets really interesting. Joshua doesn't just fire Don.
Okay.
He turns to Derek Chisora,
Okay.
their mutual friend, and Don's former protege,
Oh, wow.
to act as a go-between. Talk about awkward.
Oh, can you imagine being Chisora in that situation?
Yeah.
Caught between these two like powerful personalities, both of whom he respects, trying to navigate this situation just fraught with, loyalty, ambition, and a whole lot of like unspoken history. Chisora, loyal to a fault, agrees to talk to Don.
Right.
Tries to like soften the blow, explaining that Joshua's grateful but feels held back, yearning for a different style, a new approach.
Okay. And how does Don, a man who, built his reputation on discipline and old school values, how does he take this news?
Not well. Don's response? Classic drill sergeant, holding him back.
Oh, wow.
Everything he knows I taught him. Now he thinks he's too good for the basics.
It's not even about the training methods anymore, is it?
Right.
It's about pride, legacy, the unspoken contract between a mentor who pours his all into a student only to be, deemed expendable once success comes knocking.
It's that age-old struggle of the mentor, right? Feeling like their contribution is being minimized.
Right.
That their role in shaping this champion is being, I don't know, forgotten.
Forgotten, yeah.
Like a parent watching their kid go off to college, knowing it's a necessary part of growth, but still feeling that pang of sadness, that worry that they'll be left behind.
And in this case, the college is a much bigger stage with much brighter lights and a whole lot more money on the line.
Oh, yeah.
So despite Don's, resistance, he eventually agrees to let Joshua go. There's this telling quote from Don years later where he recounts that moment. He says, "Fine.
Okay.
If he thinks he's ready to fly without me, let him go." But you can almost hear the hurt in his voice.
Oh, yeah.
Like that unspoken question, did my sacrifices mean so little?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, really. But it also reveals this fundamental truth about mentorship. It's an act of faith. Investing in someone else's potential, even if it means that, they might eventually outgrow you.
And it's often a thankless job.
Right.
I mean, how many times have we heard stories of coaches, teachers, even parents who poured their heart and soul into nurturing someone's talent only to be, forgotten when the accolades start rolling in?
It's the bittersweet reality of mentorship.
Yeah.
You celebrate their victories as your own, even if your name, isn't on the trophy. But it makes you wonder, how do you process that mix of emotions? The pride, the resentment, that nagging feeling that maybe you weren't appreciated as you should have been? Especially for someone like Don, who, from all accounts, isn't one to shy away from speaking his mind.
Right.
So what happens to him after Joshua walks away? Does he just retreat into the shadows, licking his wounds?
Not a chance.
Okay.
Don Charles is a fighter at heart, and he channels that hurt, that burning sense of injustice right back into his craft.
Right.
He keeps training, pushing fighters with that same ferocity, that same unwavering belief in the fundamentals that he, instilled in Joshua.
It's like he's trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
Not just to the boxing world, but maybe to Joshua himself. Like,
Right.
Look what I can do. Look who I can make.
Exactly.
And there's a quote from Don that really gets to the heart of this. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, "It's about reminding the world who made him what he is."
It's not just bitterness, though there's an element of that.
Right. But it's also about recognition.
Recognition, right?
Asserting his place in Joshua's story, even if that place is now, relegated to the past.
The past, yeah. It makes you think about all those unsung heroes behind the scenes of, any success story.
Right.
The ones who lay the groundwork, who saw the potential when no one else did, and who, more often than not get a simple, thank you at best.
Yeah.
It's like they say, you can take the boxer out of the gym, but you can't take the gym out of the boxer.
And you can't take the mentor out of the equation either.
Right.
Even when they're not physically present, their influence lingers.
Right.
Those early lessons, the work ethic, the belief system, it becomes part of the champion's DNA.
It makes you think about the nature of success. How often do we attribute a win solely to the individual and not acknowledge that web of relationships, the mentors, the supporters who help them get there?
It's like the classic iceberg effect.
Right.
You see the tip,
Right.
champion holding up the belt.
Right.
But you don't always see the massive foundation of hard work, sacrifice, and, even heartbreak that lies beneath the surface.
And sometimes those hidden stories.
Yeah.
The ones about the mentors who help build those foundations. Those are just as compelling, just as full of drama and emotion as the championship fights themselves.
Absolutely. And in some ways even more universal.
Right.
Because we've all had mentors in our lives.
Oh, yeah?
People who've challenged us, pushed us to be better, even if it meant letting us, fall flat on our faces a few times along the way.
We've all felt that pull between loyalty and ambition, too.
Right.
That desire to forge our own path, even if it means leaving behind the ones who helped us get started.
Yeah, it's a classic coming-of-age story, whether you're a boxer or a musician or just trying to, navigate life's big decisions.
It makes you wonder, though, is there a way to kind of rewrite the ending of this story?
Yeah.
Could there be a world where both the mentor and the protege find fulfillment, even if their paths diverge?
That's a great question.
Right.
Maybe it requires a different definition of success.
Okay.
One that values collaboration, mutual respect, even as individual goals, evolve.
Or maybe it's about recognizing that mentor-protege relationship, it doesn't have to end.
Right.
It transforms. It becomes a dialogue between equals.
Right.
Each learning from the other, even as their journeys take them in different directions.
Now, wouldn't that be a knockout punch of an ending?
Right. To see that kind of mutual respect and understanding, even amidst, the high stakes and even higher egos of professional sports.
It would be a testament to the enduring power of mentorship, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
A reminder that even in a world that's, driven by individual achievement,
Right.
that the strongest bonds are often forged in the crucible of shared struggle and mutual growth.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with this question for you.
Hmm.
What resonates most from this story of Anthony Joshua and Don Charles? Is it the raw ambition, the tooth, the bittersweet sting of betrayal, or the quiet dignity of a mentor who knows his worth, even if the world doesn't always see it? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never underestimate the impact of those who help shape your journey, even if their names aren't on the trophy.